Welcome to Kevin Deal Photography, where I take you on my journey through photography. On today's episode, we're going to be doing an in-depth review of the Fuji 8mm f3.5. I'm pleased to announce the release of my Capture One and Lightroom presets, Metamorphic Portraits, The Sound of Silver, and Rangefinder. These are all available for purchase at my website. Go to kevindealphotography.com or check out a link in the description below. And now, on to today's episode. The Fuji XF8mm f3.5 is an autofocus, non-image stabilized APS-C rectilinear lens for the Fuji X mount system. It has an aperture range of f3.5 to f22, and it has a built-in aperture ring. It has an angle of view of 120 degrees. It has a front filter thread size of 62 millimeters. Its optical design is 12 elements in 9 groups, and it has 9 rounded aperture blades. Its minimum focusing distance is 7 inches or 0.18 meters. It has a magnification of 0.07. Its dimensions are 2.6 by 2.07 inches or 68 by 52.8 millimeters. It comes in at a weight of 7.5 ounces or 215 grams, and it comes in at a street price of $799 US. Welcome to today's episode. If you're not familiar with Kevin Deal Photography, we do gear reviews, tips, techniques, and tutorials, and sometimes we dive into film. If any of that sounds appealing to you, click the subscribe button below. So for all of you who are coming back to this channel, welcome back. And for all of you who are here for the very first time, welcome to Kevin Deal Photography. And at the beginning of every episode, I ask for donations to the organization BIG, which is an organization that helps intellectually disabled adults adapt to jobs in the real world. I also wanted to take this time to thank all of you who donate to my Super Thanks link. With your donations, I buy more gear, which I can then review for this channel and help you with your buying decisions. So, thank you very much, but we are gonna move on to the subject of today's episode, which is the 8mm f3.5 maximum aperture lens from Fuji. And if you follow this channel, I have done a review of the Tamron 11-20 2.8. I love that lens. It was a zoom lens. It was pretty versatile, but it was a little soft. And I kind of wish that it was a little sharper on the edges and just in the center of the frame in general. It had a little bit of a mushy look to it. So I'm hoping that this 8mm gives me a little bit better of a optical performance. 8mm in the APS-C world, if you come over from full frame world, gives you a perspective of about 12 millimeters. So I see Pennybacker Bridge over my shoulder, which is a really famous landmark here in Austin, Texas. And I'm gonna take a picture of it real quick so you can kind of get a perspective of what this looks like. And while I love Pennybacker Bridge and I always do street photography and tests with my lenses here in downtown Austin all the time, I think I'm gonna take this guy on a little bit more of an adventure in this episode. Let's go somewhere that is hopefully perfect for an 8mm lens. All right, so I told you I was gonna take you somewhere pretty cool. I'm kind of out of breath because I'm here in the Rocky Mountains. Can't think of a cooler place to test out an 8mm lens. I did kind of screw up because I totally forgot to bring all my ND filters and CPL filters. Good time to tell you that this takes a 62mm front filter thread size. Additionally, I did say the Tamron 11-20 was kind of mushy, but I'm gonna try to shoot both these lenses stop down between f8, f11, and then we'll see what kind of results we can get. So I shifted back to exclusively using the 8mm after firing off those few comparison shots. We'll talk about those later in today's episode, but the allure of 8mm and the perspective that it offered me was just so foreign and unique. I felt super creative. I was just walking around, taking things in, but I did encounter some challenges.
Okay, so you saw me test this guy out when I went up into the Rockies. Unfortunately, I couldn't get above the tree line at 10,000 feet because it's still winter here and everything is still closed because it's frozen solid. And I also noticed that I couldn't find foreground elements that were of interest because I just couldn't get close enough to things. And everything was just so far away with this lens. So traveling into the Rockies by car, not being able to kind of get out into the trails and find things like logs on the ground or something of interest, I found that it was kind of limiting with this 8mm. It was a bit too wide. And then another thing that reared its ugly head about this guy is that the rear element is starting to kind of come loose. For $800, the build quality of this lens is subpar compared to my 23, 70-300 and 18mm lenses that I own from Fuji. So that's definitely something that kind of sucks. I'm having to like hold it really tight against my camera to make sure that that focal plane of the back element is lined up. And I'm just gonna have to deal with this when I get home. But for an $800 lens, that is piss poor construction quality.
Not to be deterred, I made a pit stop in Morrison, Colorado, home of Red Rocks Amphitheater. It's one of the most majestic natural views in the United States. If you can catch a concert here, I highly recommend it. And there's lots of closer foreground elements for me to shoot. So I walked around Red Rocks and enjoyed my little slideshow of all the shots I got with the 8mm 3.5.
So the build quality of my copy has come up short, but if I press it up against my camera body, I seem to be able to keep the focal plane straight. So I'm gonna keep trying with this guy. Is your copy of your 8mm as flimsy as mine? If you had issues with it, tell me about it in the comments of this video. But I know a lot of you are looking at this 8mm for architecture, so I'm gonna press on and I'm gonna keep shooting with this guy. Denver has a lot of really fascinating architecture. I'm at their Supreme Court right now. Really beautiful columns everywhere, some really beautiful statues. So I'm gonna take this 8mm and we're gonna see what kind of cool shots we can get with them here in downtown Denver.
Now, like I do with every lens I review on this channel, I did shoot some portraiture. Now, I know what you're thinking, why would you use 8mm for portraiture? But I actually love using ultra wides as a change-up lens. We always think here in the Fuji world of a 35 or a 56 or maybe a 90mm for portraiture. Personally, I think you can tell a great story with an 8mm. It shows everything around your subject. You just got to make sure you get them enough in the frame. And as you can see right here, I did a fashion shoot with this talented model, Davin. I think the lens did a fantastic job. Now, you do have to watch for your feet. As you can see right here, my feet got in some of the shots, but just be mindful of that when using this lens. While I didn't get in as much shooting as I wanted to get with this lens due to the fact that I have to send it in for service, I did get enough shooting under my belt to where I can absolutely tell you my initial impressions of this 8mm 3.5. So let's go back to the studio and let's talk about it. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, I didn't shoot as much with this lens as I had originally planned, but I finally crossed the threshold of real-world use where I feel like I can give you an honest take on what I like and don't like about it. Let's start with the cons. The f3.5 maximum aperture isn't ideal for low light situations. Full disclosure, I didn't test it at night, but based on my experience with Fuji gear, I usually need something f2 or faster to keep noise levels acceptable when shooting handheld in the dark. So I feel confident saying this isn't going to be a go-to lens for handheld night photography. Maybe it could work for astrophotography on a tripod, but I didn't test that either. Now let's talk about my bad experience using this lens. I reviewed dozens of lenses on this channel and I've never had one break until now. I've literally dropped the RF 85mm f1.2 on my driveway attached to an R5 and both the camera and lens are still going strong. So when I say nothing violent happened to this lens in the month I've owned it, I really mean it. I think I'd remember if something catastrophic had occurred. At the start of this review, I mentioned I wanted to do a shootout between this Fuji 8mm and my Tamron 11-20, but when I looked at the 8mm images, they looked off. Not just soft or flawed, but something was wrong. Sure enough, I noticed the rear element was starting to detach. When I pressed it against the body, I could nail focus and get sharp shots. That discovery shifted my priority from comparing the two lenses to just getting as many usable shots as I could in Denver before heading back to Austin. I honestly don't know what happened. Could a flight attendant have banged a cart into my bag under my seat? Maybe. I did have an aisle seat. Could something have happened, or could something have fallen on this lens in my car? Maybe. I can't say for sure, but what I can say with absolute certainty is that this lens is vulnerable. 3 of the 4 posts that hold the rear element in place were snapped. Maybe I just got unlucky, but build quality is a big con here, and the biggest one in my opinion. One more con, I don't think this lens is worth $799 based on build quality alone. I think a more realistic price point should have been around $499. But as bad as that was, there were some pretty awesome things about this lens. First off, this lens is tiny and it's lightweight. It's compact. It's easy to toss in a bag, which makes it great for spontaneous shooting. It makes it more likely you'll actually pull it and put it into your bag in the first place. The minimum focusing distance on this lens was a lot of fun. I wanted to get close with this lens and embrace the distortion. That's the whole point. And since it's rectilinear, the distortion isn't too wild, but it does add character without ruining the shot. For all of you whose rear elements are still intact, you'll get to enjoy its weather resistance. It has a WR designation. Unfortunately, I didn't get much chance to test that since mine's heading to the shop. Fuji purists rejoice. You'll appreciate the fact that this does have an aperture ring with 1/3 stop increments. It gives you that familiar tactile feel you're likely already enjoying on your other Fuji lenses. Despite not having image stabilization, most modern Fuji cameras come with stabilization in the body. So as you can see right here for stills, I handheld it at about half a second. You can see the nice, beautiful wispy streams with the sharp rocks. So with the newer bodies, you can get some modest time-lapse shots handheld. I also want to point out that the autofocus was really solid. It stood right up there with all my other Fuji lenses. You're of course limited by the autofocusing system inside your camera. For video, this lens is decent. There's no image stabilization, but it's also so wide that you're probably not going to have to worry as much about shake as you do with longer focal lengths. You will get some wild warping, of course, if you do sudden motion, as is common with ultra wides, but it wasn't a huge issue overall.
All right, so I'm here at my hotel room, nothing fancy, but I wanted to show you what 8mm looks like for kind of a talking head situation. You can get up real close to it and make it super uncomfortable. But it's pretty wide, so maybe too wide, and then if you want to do vlogging, let me just kind of pick it up and, you know, I mean, you've definitely got quite a bit going on here for vlogging. So cool if you want to keep your environment in here when you're doing vlogging. So something to keep in mind for this 8mm is that I'd say it's pretty good for video, and for handheld, I felt that like the IBIS in my XH2 was enough. I didn't really need to have a gimbal when I was using the XF8. I would actually give this XF8mm some pretty good marks for video.
And finally, maybe the biggest strength and probably the most important to all of you, and that is image quality. Once I worked around the focal plane issue, I got some pretty gorgeous images, especially in downtown Denver while I was shooting skyscrapers. While I didn't get to do a proper direct A/B test with the Tamron 11-20, my gut says this Fuji is a little sharper. That's why I'm eager to get it repaired. I think once it's working properly, it'll become a regular part of my kit. I'll just need to keep a closer eye on it moving forward. So, should you buy this lens? Well, I'm definitely conflicted on it because I feel like it's a little overpriced and I wish the build quality could take a little bit more sudden pressure than mine encountered. But I'm already invested in it and I'm going to send this guy off and get it fixed. If I'm being honest with myself, I think I just got unlucky. At least that's what I hope. But maybe I'll do a follow-up long-term review once I get this guy back from repair and do some more shooting. That does it for today's episode. Do you own the Fuji 8mm f3.5? How are you enjoying your copy? Did you encounter any of the issues that I encountered with mine? Tell me about it in the comments below. Did you go with a different lens than this 8mm? Tell me about that in the comments below. And if you like this channel, I humbly ask you to click the subscribe button below. And until next time, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.